As of right now, Dead by Daylight is the only game in its genre to have lasted a decent amount of time. Several other asymmetrical titles exist, but have not amassed as much of a following as Dead by Daylight has in its entire 5-year lifespan. I believe that there is one primary reason that these games have not had anywhere near Dead by Daylight's success. Dead by Daylight is a game all about grind, and grind is the core feature that drives players to play the game more, as for most titles. Most games have grind in some way, shape, or form, and the more grind a game has, the more people will tend to play it before they get bored or lose motivation and play something else. For a decent amount of time, Dead by Daylight encourages players to grind so that they'll be able to equip every perk that they would want to use on characters that they would want to use them on. So, even though every game has a grind, Dead by Daylight's is a bit more tedious. So, for example, if you want to get the shape, you have to spend $7 or $3.50 if it's on sale or whatever the sale is. And so then you have the shape, and you also have all the other base killers such as Trapper, Wraith, Hillbilly, Nurse, Huntress, and that's it, unless if you got like special DLC or special version of the game. So assuming you don't have any DLCs, you have 15 perks on top of the 5 characters worth of perks, so 15. So you have 30 perks total at base game for killer. And this is a bad thing because there's 90 killer perks in the game. Now, a lot of these base perks aren't actually that great, or even, some of the free killers perks aren't even that great. Like, Wraith doesn't really have super great perks. Like, Shadowborn is alright, I prefer not to use it, just because I'll get too used to it, yada yada. But, I digress. There's only 15 out of the 90 perks that you have by default in the game. Now, you can't really make builds until you spent a lot of blood points into a certain killer, like I have with Shape and Hag and Doctor and all these P3 level 50 people. I have all the perks that I have unlocked on them. However, it takes a while to do that, and a lot of playtime to do that, as you can see by my devotion level and playtime in the game, which is a lot. On top of that, it takes about 200 plus games to get enough shards, the currency to purchase characters, to be able to purchase a character. And again, these can't really be licensed characters because money, essentially. But 200 games, and let's assume 20 minutes in between games, queue times, and other stuff. You have to have the game running for about 66 hours if you do the math. And 66 hours per character is, well, a lot of playtime. It definitely gives you enough playtime to unlock perks on killers and start maxing killers out, or survivors for that case. I mostly play survivor, even though I have more prestige 350 killers than survivors, because, well, survivors all play the same, killers don't, but I digress. If you want certain perks on a killer, or a certain loadout on a killer, and not have to run base perks, like Bitter Murmur for example, it's decent, but it's a base perk, or free perks, like Agitation, which comes with the Trapper, then you'll have to buy characters or earn characters via playtime, again with iridescent shards, 66 hours per character basically. Character not DLC, so only one killer and survivor at a time. It's arguably not worth it, but if you play a lot, then you might have enough time to get it. Anyway, I digress. If you want to make a certain build on a killer, like, this build that I have on Myers, for example, you need to get 3 characters that aren't free, and you need to get Shape, that is premium. These 3 characters can be purchased with shards, but the Shape costs $7 or $3.50 when on sale, usually, depending on the sale. Now, not only do you have to acquire these killers via playtime or money or whatever, You have to level them to level 40, level 35, level 35, level 35 for this exact build. You might have to level multiple to level 40 or, whatever for whichever perks you want. So let's say as a new player you think this build is fairly good. Well, again, you have to get Nurse to level 40, Doctor to level 35, Plague to level 35, and Hag to level 35. You don't have to play them at all during this time, you just have to invest enough blood points to get them to that level. Now, on average, to get someone to level 40, it's about 1 million, and to get someone to level 35, it's about 850k. So if you add all these numbers together, that's like 3.5 million for each, or for all these perks. Now, it can take a while to get that many blood points, or like it can just take, you can just get it via playing. But the less blood points you have, the more you realize you need blood points. And the more you need blood points, the more you need to play. And it's a pretty good model, honestly, for like grind. Because when you start playing the game, you don't realize the depth of how much time you need to potentially put into the game. And, after a bit of time, you understand how much time you need to put into the game. And then by that time, you just keep on playing the game because it's a fun game, honestly. It has its strength and it has its weaknesses, and some things need to be changed, but at the end of the day, it's a good game, it's a fun game, and there's a reason why people are able to have twice or three times as many shards that I have and have all the characters, because they play the game a lot. It's the only game that they play, or game that they play the most, which is the game that I play the most, but I digress. The game needs players to play for a long time for players to be able to get the perks that they want, and this shows. I have a buddy of mine mains one survivor and is trying to get all the perks on that survivor, and most of his blood points go into that survivor. Now he has 550 hours in the game and is approaching, 600, and he has 3.5 characters left to get all the teachables on. So by the time he gets those teachables on his main survivor, he will have spent like 600 hours in the game. This is including wait times and not readying up and just having the game running in the background, but it's still like probably at least 550 hours to get all the perks on one survivor. And that's just one survivor, not killer. He hasn't really spent too much blood points on killer, but if you were to max out a killer, it would take just as long in general for a killer, and then it would take, longer for every killer that you add later on due to more DLCs being added into the game, and also the fact that if you have all 90 killer perks unlocked, for example, then your perk pool, or your blood webs, now take longer to go through to get all the perks, or at least the perks that you want. And since Dead by Daylight has a tiered system for perks, perks take much longer to max out, and, blood webs don't always give you the perks that they want, and the pool doesn't shrink as often due to the tier system of perks. Essentially, if you want to get all perks at tier 3, or even get the perks that you want, it takes much longer to grind out those blood points to get those perks because of the tier system. So, even though there's 90 perks in the game, there's 180 tiers, meaning by the time you get to level 50, you'll have 60, 70, I forget the exact amount, of perk tiers. You won't have 50 perks by level 50. You'll have 50 tiers. These perks won't be maxed. Some of these perks will be tier 2, but you can't guarantee that you have all the perks by like level 90. The game just doesn't work like that because of the tiered system of perks. Each perk has 3 individual tiers, and it just elongates the grind of the game, and that's not necessarily a good thing by any means. Like, it keeps the player playing, but you don't want the player to constantly play for semi-arbitrary reasons. And I'm not saying grind is the only reason why I play the game. Like, if the game weren't fun, then I wouldn't play it. And, this applies to everyone else. Just grind is a staying reason for the game. And, like, to a certain point, the grind doesn't really ever stop. Like, I could stop grinding. I have 2 survivors who are maxed, and killers that are maxed, except for, these 2 that I don't have unlocked. I have all the perks that I have unlocked on these 8, I think, killers. But after a while, I'm just looking where to spend my next blood points and waiting for the next DLC sort of thing. But, like, I've already invested as much time as I have in DBD, and it's, my favorite game. It's, the game that I play the most, for that matter. But the game's not perfect, and to be perfect, it needs competition. And as of right now, it doesn't really have any competition of any currently released games. And in my opinion, the next DBD-like game or asymmetrical title that comes out needs to have a decent amount of grind. And so far, VHS looks promising, but until then, I don't have beta access, and it's also a completely different game, and the grind of that game is going to be quite a bit different from DBD, because DBD works in a way to where a 0-hour account can play just as fine as a account with 2,000 hours who isn't running perks. But in VHS, an account with 0 hours will not be able to play the same as an account with 200 hours. But that's just... we'll have to see how it turns out. The thing is, whatever game tries to compete with DBD or coexist with DBD, it needs to start off with a good grind, which is entirely subjective, but also somewhat precise to design. Because the grind can't be too intimidating for early players. DBD gets away with this because it doesn't communicate its grind super clearly until players look at the character info, for example. Or, look at line, watching videos, or on the Dead by Daylight wiki. It's Dead by Daylight's teachable perk system works well because it's hidden, but it's not how game design should work. Game design should communicate to players how the game works and how the players can interact with the game. But I digress. Any competitor to Dead by Daylight must simultaneously be able to satisfy hardcore grinders, but also provide a reasonable grind for casuals, or make it more balanced in a way where a 0-hour account can play the same as a 500-hour account if they have, the know-how of the game. Good progression systems need to simultaneously show that you have progressed, i.e. having better perks in Dead by Daylight, while also not making you super overpowered for having played a lot, because if people encounter you with a way lesser playtime and you stomp them solely because of how you leveled up, then that deters players. For example, Call of Duty games have a fairly short progression system if you don't include prestige. They have like 50 levels, and then you can have all the weapons, whatever weapons you want to equipped. But it doesn't steer people away who have 200 hours versus, 50 hours and just got their final weapon. People are on a more equal playing ground after a certain amount of playtime. But with Dead by Daylight and possibly VHS, players might need to play a lot to be able to be, or have the benefits of, other players or people who play the game a lot. If there is a free weekend. Essentially, grind is a fine line, and the next game of Dead by Daylight's genre needs to, of course, obviously have fun gameplay, but it needs to have a grind and progression that players need to be able to feel that they're working towards something. Because if they don't feel like they're working towards something, then they're more likely to drop the game. I've kept on playing games because they've had grind, even though I haven't been having fun playing them. DBD has been one of these games at times, and, well, it it has benefited from grind for that one reason. And I just want to make it clear that I don't just like DBD for the grind. It's the gameplay and the formula that keeps me coming back. It's the new DLCs that keep me coming back. And I don't hate the game. I like the game a lot. I want it to get better, but the best way for a game to get better is for it to have competition. Dead by Daylight's missing features that would, like quality of life features that would make it so much better, like loadout slots, for example. Like there could just be an arrow right here or an arrow right here, and I could switch loadout shots and slots, and get one per prestige or get one per devotion of a character or something like that. And since there's no loadout slots, because I main survivor, I have to use multiple survivors as different loadout slots. Which, I mean, my main survivors are the P350 ones, but that's beside the point. Essentially, if I want more loadout slots as survivor, I have to invest a whole bunch more time and blood points to get, perks on whatever survivors, and prestiging doesn't matter, but I do it anyway, so I waste another, like, 3 million just prestiging them. Or something around that. It's not a good amount of blood points. And I think that having small quality of life changes like this won't happen until Dead by Daylight has some sort of competition, or something that inspires them to do small quality of life changes like the, loadout thing that I mentioned, or a search system for the perks. I mean, last patch we got these numbers that we can click to go instantly to the next page, which I think I used earlier in the video. I don't remember. But I'm not gonna remember what page perks are on. Like if I want Detective's Hunch, oh, it's right there. If I want Decisive Strike or something, I'm not gonna exactly remember what page it's on. I would like a search feature, but they didn't implement that. And hey, maybe they implement that if there's competition, or I don't know. I'm going on a side rant now, but it's Dead by Daylight needs competition to become a better game. And like, I don't want Dead by Daylight to die out, but having another game to play would be nice, or having competition for Dead by Daylight to grow would be nice. But we currently don't have that at this moment in time. VHS might pop off and do really well, but at the same time, it might die out like the other asymmetrical games, like Friday the 13th, which had its own reasons behind it failing. Hide or Die, HSH. Just games have not done as well as DBD, and I think a primary reason for that is how DBD has like set goals, or players can set their own goals for grind, and the system for that is a good system, albeit grindy. I hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of it. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and with VHS coming out, I saw that as a perfect opportunity to do so. Again, I want Dead by Daylight to succeed, but for it to do that, it needs to improve more over time, and it needs competition to push it towards improvement. As of right now, VHS is that competition. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. If you want to discuss anything in the comments below, go for it. I'm not gonna stop you. And if you want to watch more content, feel free to subscribe, check out my other videos, and maybe my new channel, trophytroll 2, for more gameplay-oriented content. Have a great day or night. Thanks for watching.